A wind starts to pick up, and Nick and Roy watch various debris swept off by it. Whirling wind funnels start to form as the artifact nears completion. Meanwhile, 2 Boston police show up to bring Julia to her planned meeting with Bobby. Their tones of voice and facial expressions show they're unpopped deados in league with Bobby. As Bobby and several deados arrive at the Commonwealth building, Pulaski and a number of other deados prepare a barricade and lots of soul-erasing firepower to guard all approaches. Roy and Nick see the largest wind funnel massing over the Commonwealth building and know that's where Bobby is heading. Several cars with deado drivers and passengers pursue them and try to stop them. Using some modern Boston police driving, Nick leads them through a wild chase among several collapsing buildings and garages that drop parked automobiles that destroy the other deado cars. At the Commonwealth, Bobby tells the deados with him to bring the last components up top while he waits for the final piece. Just then, the car carrying Julia arrives. Bobby takes out some cumin powder and inhales it, popping himself and revealing his deado nature in front of Julia. He grabs her and takes her up to the roof of the Commonwealth. A news helicopter flies near the Commonwealth, trying to make sense of what they're reporting, when a small jeep collides with them and is knocked back atop the Commonwealth roof. As Roy and Nick approach the barricade, Pulaski fires at them, using his deado agility and acrobatics to his advantage. Nick speeds up, scooping Pulaski atop the hood of the car, then driving it up so the barricade's construction launches the car, with Pulaski and several other deados still clinging to it, up over the barricade. It hits the street on the opposite side and races on, most of the other deados being thrown off, but Pulaski tenaciously clinging to the hood. Nick and Roy both shout the mantra, "Relax body," as the car speeds up again, plowing into the side of a building. Pulaski is pinned atop the car hood, between its roof and the building wall, and Roy and Nick with their guns pointed at him through the broken windshield. They both fire and Pulaski is finally erased. On the Commonwealth roof, the many-armed deado holds Julia fast while Bobby finishes assembling the Staff of Jericho, the cross-shaped piece of gold and apparent centerpiece console. Bobby then tells Julia that one final piece is needed, the blood of a living human sacrifice, which Bobby intends for Julia to serve as. Nick and Roy bust onto the roof, weapons drawn. Bobby grabs Julia and holds her as a shield, and then takes a long metal rebar with a sharp point, and drives it through Julia's body, impaling her. As the free-for-all shootout begins, and Roy's Old West sharpshooting blends with Nick's more modern marksmanship to eradicate the deados, Julia's blood is sucked from her wound into the artifact, a small globe of her blood congealing in an opening within it, powering it up to full. The afterlife tunnel is reversed, dead spirits beginning to free fall back down to earth. Nick hurries to the stricken Julia, who lies dying on the Commonwealth roof. Julia looks around, time seeming paused as she sees Nick at her side, seeing him as he used to be while living. Nick knows this is because Julia has just died and is not rising up toward the afterlife tunnel only because seeing Nick anchors her near. Julia kisses Nick, happy to see her husband with her again, but this moment finally helps Nick to do what he has to do. Accept his own death and let go, telling Julia she must live her life without him. Telling Julia he'll always love her, he finally says goodbye. Julia awakens abruptly in a hospital room, a doctor watching over her. Or someone Julia merely sees as a doctor, but is actually Proctor. Seeing Julia awaken, the doctor nods to her and heads out, where Nick and Roy are waiting. Proctor tells Nick that Julia will recover. As they leave the hospital building, Proctor tells Nick and Roy that Eternal Affairs conducted the disciplinary hearing without them, despite their having missed it only because they were saving the world. As a new recruit, Nick has been let off with a warning, but Roy has had his term of service extended by 53 more years. Annoyed, Roy calls Proctor by her first name, Mildred. It's time for the final showdown, and Nick and Roy are fighting mad. Reloading their weapons, they storm the roof, erasing all the defending deados. Roy reaches the staff and tries to pry out the cross-shaped centerpiece. As Nick reaches Bobby, the last deado standing, his weapon is empty. Bobby attacks him hand to hand, and is clobbering him as Roy struggles to pull the console centerpiece from the Staff of Jericho. Needing to improvise, he grabs a loose power cable and makes a lasso. Spotting the Jeep lying atop the Commonwealth sign, he lassos the Jeep and, pulling with all his might, finally dislodges it, bring it down atop the artifact, smashing it. Bobby turns around in disbelief as he sees the Jeep crush the Staff of Jericho, breaking apart the components and halting the reverse flow of deceased spirits. When he turns to face Nick again, Nick has slipped one last bullet into his soul eraser and chambers the round, the barrel pointed at Bobby's face. Taking great satisfaction at the vengeance moment's poetic justice, Nick fires, erasing Bobby.